Hello, my name is David Ratton. I work with Churches of Christ in Victoria and Tasmania. This is the first of 3 video sessions exploring Churches of Christ, who we are and what makes us tick. In this first session, I want to give a brief overview of the history of our movement. And in so doing, my hope is that it will not simply be a history lesson. I would love you to catch some of the passion and conviction of our forefathers who believed that God was calling them to be a better version of the Church of Jesus in our world. To understand the beginnings of our movement, we need to go back to the Reformation at the beginning of the 1500s, just over 500 years ago. Each of the great reformers had their unique impact. Martin Luther released the Bible to the world and gave a new understanding of being justified by faith. Calvin stressed the divine sovereignty of God. John Wesley agitated for more spirituality in the churches. Around these great movements of God, denominations grew. Each denomination had their distinctive emphases that were grounded in doctrinal statements and creeds. The church, as a result, became very sectarian. In an effort to protect the truth and orthodoxy, walls were erected between denominations. These walls did not only exist between denominations, they existed within them also. So let me take you back to Scotland and Ireland in the late 1700s. Within the Presbyterian Church, there were various branches, each with their own specific doctrinal statements and creeds. So if you were a member of the Old Light Burger Seceder Presbyterian Church, you would not be allowed to take communion in an Old Light Anti-Burger Seceder Presbyterian Church. We are talking about the Church of Jesus Christ, which was divided over differences in doctrine, belief, and practice. The prayer of Jesus in John chapter 17, asking his Father to unify the church, was certainly not being answered at this time in the church's history. This religious landscape, the middle to the late 1700s, proved to be fertile ground for the emergence of independent Christian movements endeavouring to break the shackles of these rigid structures. This was the period of history and the religious context into which Churches of Christ was born. The birth of our movement is closely associated with a number of significant individuals, beginning with Thomas Campbell. Thomas Campbell was born in County Down, Northern Ireland in 1763. He trained and was licensed as an anti-burger secessionist Presbyterian minister in 1787. Exhausted by the constant demands of ministry, his health broke down. His doctor recommended a sea voyage, and his son Alexander persuaded him to sail for America. Thomas had a growing conviction that the Church of Jesus Christ should be united, and he began to teach and preach on this theme. This emphasis did not win him any friends in the Presbyterian Church. His position as a minister under the Presbyterian Synod of Pennsylvania lasted less than 18 months. He was reprimanded for certain irregularities, including offering communion to Presbyterians outside his synod's jurisdiction. He preached in the homes of sympathetic friends on the theme of Christian unity. Sympathisers drawn from different denominations formed themselves into the Christian Association of Washington. The association's main purpose was promoting simple evangelical Christianity, free from all mixture of human opinions and inventions of men. They began to believe that all Christians could be united if we could return to simple New Testament Christianity. They believed that if everyone dropped their denominational tags and called themselves simply Christians, then we could become the unified church Jesus had prayed for. Campbell famously said, "Where the scriptures speak, we speak, and where the scriptures are silent, we are silent." Many years ago, I visited the first Christian Church in Phoenix, Arizona. The senior minister was Leroy Lawson. He was not only a minister but also an academic and historian. He wrote, "While gratefully acknowledging their debt to great reformers like Martin Luther, John Calvin, Zwingli, John Knox, and others, these Christians only believed their reforms remained unfinished. The only way to determine what the church should be like and how Christians should behave is to study New Testament documents in which the churches of Christ are presented in splendour and in shortcomings." To express more clearly the principles of the Christian Association of Washington, Campbell prepared a statement of purpose, which included a brief declaration and a longer address. This document listed 13 propositions to describe their convictions about the church. Let me read a couple. The Church of Christ on earth is indispensably, intentionally, and structurally one. It includes everyone in any place who professes trust and obedience to Christ in all matters according to the Scriptures, and who demonstrates such in character and conduct. And secondly, nothing ought to be received into the beliefs and worship of the church, nor made the test for fellowship, which is not as old as the New Testament books. No one should dictate binding directives outlining exactly how procedures have to be carried out if the New Testament is silent about such procedures. The vision of a reunited church dominated Thomas Campbell's life. One historian has written this about Thomas Campbell: "The unity that was part of the New Testament pattern was, in Campbell's view, a visible and constitutional unity, permanent and universal in scope. That is, its re-establishment would involve an entire union of all the churches." Campbell was utterly opposed to creeds. It was creeds that divided churches and worked against unity. He was advocating a non-sectarian Christianity which centred on unity on a few essentials and advocated tolerance on matters of opinion. Two of the early catch cries of our movement are easy to understand in the context of the Christian Association of Washington and the 13 propositions. Firstly, no creed but Christ. And then, in essentials, unity. In non-essentials, liberty. In all things, love. Thomas Campbell's son, Alexander, ultimately joined his father in America as a 21-year-old. Unbeknown to Thomas, Alexander had independently been questioning the sectarian nature of the Presbyterian Church. He was coming to similar conclusions to those of his father before he arrived in America. Alexander was shown the Declaration and Address document and, as the story goes, promised his father to devote the rest of his life and energies to promoting the principles and views of the Declaration and Address. Alexander Campbell was to become a leading voice in our emerging movement. From these humble beginnings, our movement began to grow. This unity message appealed to many in the New World of the United States. Writing in the Christian History magazine, Richard Hughes states, "It had no long and storied history, few highly educated clergy, no bishops except over local congregations, and no carefully organised evangelistic campaigns. Yet this upstart Christian phenomenon swept into its fold thousands upon thousands of Americans in the early 19th century, even as it rejected all traditional churches, Catholic and Protestant alike, and aspired to become the universal church that would unify all Christians and inaugurate the millennial dawn. Perhaps no Christian tradition more fully mirrored the democratic and optimistic world of the new American Republic." Well, in the next session, I will explore the development in the United States of this new movement that became known as the Restoration Movement, and that had a major impact in North America and ultimately spread around the world, including here to Australia.